charged and I just wanna dance among the stars. I just wanna dance among the stars. I just wanna dance among the stars. These after hours got me charged.
Susceptible What is going on, everybody? What is going on? Welcome back to the Locked In Podcast, episode 247. Here with you guys on this 9 p.m. hour. Welcome back in, my brother from the other side, Rich. Rich, what's up, brother? Thank you for coming on tonight.
What's up, homie? What's up? Where's everybody? It's like, nah, nah. Good to be here,
Yo,
bro.
where everybody at?
Yo, nah, but good to be here,
It's like,
man. Shout out to
where,
everybody who watches. Shout out to everyone who is here, not here, whatever. You know what I'm saying? God bless everyone who's going through stuff right now. Love all y'all. Looking forward to working with everybody in the podcast in the future, and also looking forward to working with you right now, Steve.
yeah, appreciate you, man. Good topic for tonight. Might have some of the boys coming rolling on through as we go. Mario and then Rob was originally supposed to definitely come, and then he said that he's gonna try to make it towards the end because something did pop up on him a little bit last minute, but he's gonna try to pop in here by the end. It'd be cool, man, if we get all the boys in because it's been a while since we've had all of us on here. And as far as I had a couple listed as 10. Actually, George was a potential too, but he's a tentative as well. I don't know if he pops in. Obviously people know me and George used to host together, but he might come on as a while. But Kandyce actually gave me some points too to use here tonight, so I'll go through that. Basically, guys, what we're talking about here tonight is emotional labor versus provision in relationships versus marriage. You might be asking me, like, what does that even mean? All it means is like the main discussion that I was going to talk about here tonight when it comes to that was two different examples. Are men expected to be the primary providers in a relationship or a marriage, and at the same time to match a woman's emotional intelligence? On the flip side of it, are women expected to be boss babes in the office, right? Be those type of, are women expected to be career driven, but at the same time be traditional partners in the household, right? Because there's a lot that gets talked about this, like, right? Like men and women, the certain roles we get put in. But this society is a little bit different. We're not really completely in a traditional society anymore where a man can go to work on a single salary and raise children and stuff. And there are men I know that can, and that's completely, that's great. If that's the dynamic that you and your partner are looking for, that's fantastic. I think the typical traditional like Christian household is that's how it always looked, but it's definitely different with economic times and financials today. Like it's a lot different than what our parents grew up with. So we're gonna talk about it. I have Kandyce's points, but I don't really have a female to male discussion on here, so I don't want to speak too much on a woman's point of view on it. I'll just give my thoughts. I can't step into a woman's shoes because I'm not a woman, so I just go based off of the experiences, I guess what Kandyce has and things I've seen. And then the
Y'all gotta
risque
show
topic.
up, ladies. It's like, nah.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off.
Nah, it's all good. It's all good. We'll see who shows up. We'll see how the comments look. But I'll say this too. The other topic that we had here tonight is the sexual paywall. So you might say, like, what does that mean? So what I mean by that is the question I was going to pose for tonight's podcast was, is sex being used as a currency or reward in modern relationships? So like, what is personal experience? What is viewpoint? What does research show? Where things are trending? Just some things like that. So we'll talk about that. It keeps things interesting. It's cool to be on the mic with you in the 9 o'clock hour, though, man. It's been a while since we've been on the late night, but I'm excited for this one, man.
Yeah, man, that's correct, man. It has been a while. Um, just happy to be here with you. Just happy to show up. Um, do the damn thing, man. Like I said, we show up for sports. We show up for, just general health things and informal, life. Whether it's budget, whether it's real estate, whether uh, the Locked In podcast covers a large, amount of things. But you know that this is kind of my area. This is kind of where I've been working on for a year. Very close to that LMFT realm. Um, it's near and dear to my heart. Currently a practitioner for it's called Triple P, and it started off in Australia. Came to Great Britain. Now it's in the United States. It's been in the United States for about, I think, 6 years or so, maybe even longer than that. But It's a parental program, and so I work with a lot of families on a daily basis. So going off of some of my experiences with that.
Okay. Yeah, man. Yeah, I know you're in the therapeutic side of things, like the psych side of things. And while that's not my field, I will say that it's always been something I've been interested in. So it's things I've studied in spare time and stuff like psych. Like, I talked about attachment styles on here. I've talked about different types of everybody's personality is different. It's kind of cool to dive into the differences that kind of make up people, right? Everybody's personality, it kind of shifts a lot of times from their personal life experiences, a lot of that being childhood and as they grow up. And it's kind of something that's cool to look into, but it helps you understand human behavior more too. You know what I mean? Whether that's with family members, whether that's with friendships, with in relationships, or for you, with clients. So it really helps you understand human behavior, which is cool. So I respect that field, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you. And as you know, man, it's a complete 360 for me as well because I didn't start off in this field. So I really started off in the military law enforcement realm, New York National Guard. Was a probation officer. Was working to become an airport police officer, and then an accident happened. But I have experience, you know, raising children, as well, because my sister actually got pregnant at a young age. So like I was there for my niece at her young age, helping raise her, helping being there for her, but also learning along the way and switching realms into working with families has been like very enlightening for me, and it's been like kind of like awesome deal, because it's helped me with emotional intelligence, it's helped me with communication, and um, help me with subjects like this, in terms of financials and what does that look like, modern day? What does that balance look like um, for couples modern day?
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. It's like it's like I said, everything has shifted in terms of the traditional household model. Things have definitely changed. So yeah, guys, I'll keep it really quick on like the parts that I go through right before we jump in. I always just say, I'm like, if you're watching on YouTube, you already know you're not already subscribed. If you like this type of content, hit the subscribe button. Also hit the little notification bell in the corner to turn those notifications on. We release podcasts typically every Thursday each week, related to personal growth most of the time. Some sports sprinkled in from time to time too. If you like that type of content, you don't want to miss it. What are you doing? Hit the subscribe button and still hit the like button too, because it really helps us out with the algorithm for people that want to see this type of content. It really boosts our engagement, but at the same time, it puts this content up higher so more people can get access to it in the algorithm. So it helps us out. Guys, if you're watching on Facebook, I'm assuming you're already part of those communities. So for that, I say thank you. Just like YouTube, though, hit that like button. Really helps us out with that algorithm. And then on both platforms, feel free to comment down below tonight. You already know the deal if you watch this regularly, but if you don't, on YouTube, I can throw your comments up on the screen. Facebook, due to meta privacy concerns, I can't throw them on the screen, but I can read them out loud from the page. So I do monitor Facebook. I'm in the background here. That being said, guys, enjoy the podcast. Let's jump in, man. Let's jump in. All right. So like I was saying, emotional labor, provisioning, what was my main thing? The main discussion, what I was trying to get out of that tonight was, because people are probably like, what does that mean? Are men still expected to be primary providers while also being expected to match a woman's level of emotional intelligence? When they come home from work. Also, conversely, are women expected to be quote unquote career driven, or how like a lot of women like to say boss babes in the office, and then expected to be traditional partners at home, like a homemaker? She's taking care of the house, she's taking care of the kids, all those types of things. So I'll speak on the man's perspective on it, but I'll also give my, my viewpoint on the women's side of it, even though I can't go from experience. It's just, I'll use some of Kandyce's notes for that side of it. But yeah, man, in terms of the provider side of it and the emotional intelligence side of it, I'm going to be honest, like, what do we always say, man, when we talk about relationships? Relationships are not 50-50. They're 100-100. So you need to be willing to pour everything into your partner. I think a lot of people pick and choose what they want to do. In this society, I'm going to be honest, as a man, if you expect your woman to go to work and at the same time come home and be able to give a team effort at helping with things around the house, or you say you guys got kids together, taking care of your kids, You as a man also need to be willing to go to work and be able to also be able to be open and vulnerable with your wife, be able to be willing to take care, and that's why I say, like, the thing is, like, everybody, the word emotional intelligence kind of gets thrown around as like women, when you think of that, it's feminine, it's this, but it's like, as a man, you want to be well rounded. And there's a book, I was saying, we were in that Connect group last year with Nate Evans, Rich, we were both in it. But the book of that group was by this guy, Jason Wilson. And the book is called The Man the Moment Demands. It talks about a comprehensive man, and I always say it on this podcast, versus a typical masculine man. Now, a comprehensive man is still masculine, but he also knows how to be well rounded. So he can still be a protector, still be a provider, but he also can emotionally regulate. He can regulate his emotions, and he can also have that emotional intelligence to also be able to communicate with his wife, be able to communicate with his woman. I think that men should be able to do both. I don't think, so my what's your stance on that, bro? Because for me, I think a man of God especially should be able to be well rounded, and we lead by example as men.
Yeah, man. So I mean, one thing I just want to compliment your observation is very balanced, right? Very logical, very straightforward approach that you're inciting. One thing I will say is it really is. It's not a one shoe size fits all. Like it's really gonna be based off of a very individualistic approach. If we're talking, now of course there's gonna be like a description or a category of things that you want to check off in your boxes, and of course in terms of what a healthy relationship looks like, right? So that's communication, right? That's consistency, right? That's understanding, right? Um, Things of that nature, those are things that fill that emotional intelligence part. And then there's the part that is also kind of like influenced by what type of society we live in, which is we live in a capitalist society. So it's very money based, very money oriented. As you know, the statistics state marriage is like a 50-50 shot in terms of how the success rate in modern day United
Yeah.
States, 50-50, right? Um, I'll give you the three things that will cause a marriage or a relationship to end prematurely. The first thing is definitely going to be social economic situations, money situations, right? So this is kind of like the leading cause of relationships not working out is money problems, disagreements on how money should be spent, and budgeting, things of that nature. Um, of course, if we're going to get into sports and because kind of have, I don't want to laugh at anyone's pain, even though he's a Dallas Cowboy. Recently Dak Prescott did break off, him and his fiance did break off his engagement because of a prenuptial agreement issue. So that just kind of gives you a clue right there of how big that thing is. The second thing I would say is the communication, right? So communication in terms of different styles of communication. Um, that is a really big factor in why a lot of relationships and things don't work out. And also bad habits, communication style. I'm also kind of including other people in your relationships is another thing that you see, like outside influences. This could mean like talk shows. This can, yes, podcasts, yes, other things, without going at it and consoling your partner or sharing your point of view with your partner, being direct and being straightforward and being communicative about your points of views or how you feel about a situation, kind of internalizing these things, judging the partner, right? Maybe having other parties judge your partner on top of that. Those are kind of some red flags that we kind of see in relationships not lasting. And then the third thing I would definitely say is just general differences and culture, general differences and experiences. And I think those things do hold true. Philosophies, right? Of how a family should go, or how, this can include religious differences, this can include political differences, is a big one going on right now, right? So we have a lot of things here. But in terms of your original question of, hey Rich, what do you think? um do I agree with what you said? Like I said, I'm very individualistic, so I'm really all as a MFT, I'm gonna be like, hey, whatever works for that family, whatever is healthy for that family. Um, a balance is never going to be a one size fits all. It's going to be a communicate. Let's figure this out together. Let's try to minimize as much people involved. Maybe you have your mentors. Maybe you have other other married couples who have that experience that you can kind of go to and seek out. If you see a marriage that is like what you want or what you're striving to be or what you're striving for, and you feel like these people are willing to kind of give advice, and you're able to pick their brains, and especially within the church. Like you said, I know we're both Bible believing Christians. In the church, that's a really big thing to have another couple that's kind of like helping you out or mentoring, or if there's a disagreement, you can kind of go back to the church and have a conversation. Of course, if we're taking this out of a religious lens, then that would be you two going possibly to a therapist. You know what I mean? Or and in both situations, you can go to a therapist. But
Yeah.
generally, um, personally, for myself, I like balance. I think that it's 100 100, like we just said. So both parties are contributing, unless the situation calls for something different. We don't live in a socio-economic place in America anymore where the typical, nuclear family is living off of one income. That's just not as common. I know, based off of social media and things that we see on TV, it would lead us to believe differently, right? But in all reality, if you look at the statistics, if you look at the numbers here, you typically need two incomes now in a house in order to be in comfortable. I know the rate out here in Jersey to live a comfortable lifestyle, you're looking at around $120,000 a year to live a comfortable lifestyle. Philadelphia is around 110, $115,000 a year to live a comfortable lifestyle. So this is just, and comfortable meaning being able to do the things that you want to do, go on vacations. You know what I mean? So yeah, balance.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll give you a statistic that actually. So as of 2026, approximately 23 to 25% of married couple families in the United States with children feature a working father and a stay-at-home mother. So that goes to show that the other side of it, 75% is two incomes. So it just goes to show you, and it's like back in 1970, it was 50%. So it's down from nearly 50% to 25%. It's declined. And then the older back you go, the more it was that the man worked, because a lot of women couldn't work back, like in the, if we go back 100 years, you know what I mean? It's a different time, you know what I
Right.
mean? So it just kind of gives to that. But you made all valid points, Rich. I agree with a lot of it. Very well said. Um, yeah, I definitely think it requires a balance, just like you said. I think that a man can be a provider, right? But if we're not emotionally available for our partners, right? What is the like? What are the odds that that marriage is going to last? And if it does last, how happy are the two people genuinely going to be if one of the partners is not emotionally available? They can't address conflict together. They can't trust each other in terms of communication, because we all know that finances are one of the biggest reasons, right? Why marriages end in divorce, due to financial stress. But also, one of the other big indicators is communication issues. Couples that can't trust each other or communicate with one another. It's one of the big breakdowns for a lot of marriages. And as Rich and I are both Christian men, we, like Rich said, we believe in God, and we're God fearing. So I do believe that in the Christian churches, right? Like, you can seek out counsel when you're struggling, because there's going to be problems that can arise inside of your marriage, or even your relationship. You don't just have to be married, your relationship, that you could really be like, maybe you're preparing for marriage, right, with your partner, but you're struggling, like you guys are going through a lot of things that maybe that require the intervene of Christian counsel, or even just a therapist in general. But as a Christian, we believe, especially if we get married to that person, that we want to exhaust all options, before divorce is even anything. In the Christian faith, it's kind of looked at for a while. This was one of the sole reasons, but they've looked at other things now too, where they acknowledge one of the only reasons for divorce in the Christian faith was infidelity. But now they're also looking and they're accepting things like abuse. Abusive relationships are not tolerable. You don't tolerate abuse in a relationship, whether it's physically, emotionally, in any type of way. And my firm belief is, this is me personally, that infidelity and abuse are for sure no-goes. But what I would say is also, if that person is unwilling to meet you halfway and you've been struggling communicating your needs for a long time, they just refuse to want to work on things. If that is the case, I think that if you've exhausted all options, you've tried therapy, or maybe they don't even want to go to therapy, I think it's a valid reason. Because if you're going to be unhappy for the next 40, 50 years of your life, I just think life is short.
Yeah, man, and oftentimes you'll find like infidelity and abuse is lined up with lack of or miscommunication, or inability to communicate properly. Based off of parenting styles, or watching other marriages or partnerships. That often stem all that stuff. A lot of it often stems from childhood. And seeing, going off of what you see, obviously, whether it be real life experience, whether it be popular culture, you know what I mean? Whether it be just the inability to, as a, individual, properly communicate with your partner. So that, I mean, to me, abuse is a form of toxic communication, physical. Abuse tells a story, and
Yeah.
it's wrong. Obviously, it's wrong. It's a story in that on both sides, and you know, it often stems from childhood, unfortunately, and bad habits that have been brought up or observed or taken into the next person's relationship. This is why oftentimes in therapy we have people do genograms to kind of go back and trace back. Okay, what was your relationship between your mother and your father? What was your relationship between your grandmother and grandfather? What was your relationship between your grandmother and great grandfather? And you'll oftentimes find a lot of answers and a lot of explanation as to why people communicate the way they do, why people treat others the way they do, um, why people have the philosophies and beliefs that they do. Um, yeah, man. So um, genograms definitely recommended for people who are trying to explore any things in their relationship. If you feel like the dynamics are off, if you feel like just the communication style isn't there, go to a therapist, explore a genogram, and trace back some of that history. You may be surprised, or you may not be surprised about what you find.
Yeah, man. You're right that a lot of it stems from early years. Like, it kind of shapes what we see, how we visualize things, how we see things. It can kind of cause us. It's up to us to catch those things too. Like, obviously, like, I don't condone any type of, and I know Rich doesn't either. We don't condone any type of abuse at all in a relationship. It does, and like I said, abuse is not just physical. Abuse can be emotional too. It can be manipulative. So it's just, you have to recognize that if that partner is abusive and they are not self-aware, they are not going to making changes. I'm not saying that every person who is abusive is a horrible person, because they can change their behavior. But if they're not willing to change their behavior, do not enable their behavior, do not accept that type of treatment, get out. And sometimes it's easier said than done, but you need to have a support system in those moments, because any type of abuse is absolutely not acceptable in any way. So, just don't. A lot of people get caught in the thing that they're like, oh, they'll eventually change. And it's like, if they're not self-aware and they're not making the active changes to change their behavior, then you can't save them. They have to be able to make those cognitive decisions on their own. So that's really important when it comes to that. But yeah, I definitely think from the man side of it that financial stability is a big thing, right? We want to be able to provide financial stability for our families. Not everybody needs to be a multimillionaire. Not if you. It really depends on your situation. how much you guys can afford to live financially comfortably, where you're paying all your bills, you're paying down debt, and at the same time you're able to put money aside for savings and investing each month. And if you're a Christian, right, tithe as well, tithe towards the church, and then be able to enjoy yourself too. You know, whether you like take a vacation, small little trips, date nights, nights out with the kids, whatever. To live comfortably, you have to kind of factor it into your own financial plan. But financial stability is important, but so is emotional intelligence. So is having the conversations, being able to talk. And a lot of women complain about that in men, is that they can't talk, right? They can't communicate. And a lot of that also, like Rich was saying, it stems from how we've seen the men in our lives, right, move. Like, because a lot of men were always taught to not really talk about those types of things. So emotional intelligence can lack in a lot of men. And a lot of times it's not their fault, right? But you have to still take accountability and be self-aware. You know, we can't change our past. We can't change what we've seen, but what we can do is we can come together and we can change our future, right? If we, get married, we can change how we interact in our marriage with our wife, and we can change how we interact with our kids. If you had a father or mother that was emotionally cold or unavailable, you can change that. That's why they call this, right, Rich, breaking those generational curses.
Correct. And I just want to go into a specific situation here, a specific example for one of my clients, who I obviously will not name. But I have actually clients who both married, both have different parenting styles, parenting philosophies, both work, both show up for each other, both show up for their kids, but issues within the philosophy, or disagreements within the philosophy of raising children, do affect their levels of emotional labor. It even affects the levels of provisioning, depending on, maybe, for example, the wife having to be the main disciplinarian in the children's life, wearing her out, you know what I mean, essentially, and possibly even having to call out, having to take extra time for herself because she feels like she is not getting enough of that time, having to be the primary disciplinarian. And so, what's the solution? What does that look like to find solution in that, right? There has to be, and this is kind of what Steve got into a little bit earlier. There has to be a bit of a balance in a situation in terms of this. Now, in a different socioeconomic situation, that may affect dynamics, that may affect ability to rectify the situation. For instance, being able to afford to pay for a maid or a babysitter to take some of the weight off of both parents. That's different. But we're talking about a middle class American family in 2026. We don't have money for a maid. We're getting by with both of our paychecks, both of our incomes, and both of us are tired after work, and still both of us have to take care of the kids. In these situations, right? We're talking the mother being the primary disciplinarian. Let's switch roles. And that's kind of what I instructed the parents to do. Let's switch roles. Let's see, dad, so you can understand what it feels like and how tiring it is for mom to understand how to be that disciplinarian. Um, mom, you're switching roles. You're being the parent that's encouraging them, that's uplifting them, because I know you're used to kind of being the bad guy, of the parents, the parent that's always, not the fun parent, right? So let's switch roles. Let's get you into being the parent that's encouraging them, that's telling them good job when they're doing the right thing. And what this does is it gives a greater understanding of the parental role aspect, right? And with that understanding comes increased communication, comes new developments in terms of the relationship growing between the two parents, not only between the two parents, but between the kids as well. Being able to experience both parents on both sides of the precipice, and that balance of a disciplinarian and an encouraging parent, uplifting parent, right? So, yeah, man.
Yeah, man, that's important. That's really, really important. It's like the encouragement, it goes a long way too. It really does. Like being able to see that in like children, like in that sometimes that's all children really need too, man. As you're like a child, is just a little bit of encouragement. A lot of people, like I hear from a lot of people, and you probably working with children before too, man. I know from like broken households and stuff, man. It's like a lot of children will say like that they've never really been heard or like appreciated or like just heard the words that they're proud their parents are proud of them, right? Like that really does. It shapes like how, children see themselves. It affects their self-esteem. And honestly, that goes into adulthood, man. That lingers into adulthood of how they see themselves. And guess what, man? If you don't have good high self-esteem in yourself, you take that out on your partner. You could take that out on your kids if you're a father. I'm just speaking from a man's perspective. Women, the same thing. If women have low self-esteem, they could take that out on our kids, on their husband. Yeah, man, it's important to be able to become. That's the thing too. Like you have to have that self-awareness to recognize these things because we don't choose how we were brought up. We're born. We don't choose the environment we're born into. We don't. But how we can choose to move going forward is different.
Yeah, man, that's correct. I mean, you want to be. I always say, this is kind of a Dr. Phil-esque term, if you will, but he's right about this. You kind of want to be the hero in the situation. There has to be a hero in the situation, right?
Yeah.
To be able to step outside of their comfort zone, to be able to go and explore some of the possible trauma in the past or family history that helped you develop into the way you were today. It takes someone in the situation um, to be able to do that and to provide an example for everybody in the family of how you handle situations to where there's miscommunications. How do you handle situations where there's a disagreement on the satisfaction level of the social economic situation, the disagreement of the kind of emotional labor that we mentioned, right? If there's a disagreement there, then it's worth communicating. It's worth exploring, uh, you know, a perspective. And if you don't agree with the perspective, then it's worth hearing from a neutral source. And it's worth exploring. Well, why don't I agree with this perspective? If there's a standstill in terms of perspective on emotional labor or socioeconomic input, why are we not asking ourselves, well, why do I feel the way that I feel?
Yep.
That's the number
Exactly.
one thing we should be doing.
Yeah. Like, why are we not questioning that? It's like because we go through people can go through their whole lives not questioning that. They're like just like allowing it to just go with the same deal with the same issues without questioning it. And sometimes I feel like it takes certain experiences almost for some people to hit really rock bottom to really be like, okay, what is going on? Like why? What caused me to get here? And
And that may be true,
unfortunately,
Steve, but there's confirmation bias that a lot of people are going through right now. So they
oh
could hit rock bottom. They could be going through a spell of not being able to find a relationship or not being able to have a healthy relationship. But then they go on social media and they hear all these things that, by the way, these people aren't experts. They're just people on social media telling you how you should be in a relationship or how a relationship should look like. You're just listening to Dan or Sally on the street tell you how a relationship should be like, and it's giving you confirmation bias of saying, "Oh, well, listen, hey, I knew I was right the whole time. That person was wrong." So you're not really learning your lesson. You know what I mean? Some people.
mhm. Yeah, you're right on the confirmation bias part of it. I would say that a lot of it is that and that's more so people not speaking from accountability. It's more speaking from ego. Certain people, what they're going to do is they're going to fuel your ego because you're going to pick and choose who you want to listen to, and you'll be like, okay, I'm going to listen to this person because they feed my belief system, even if it's fundamentally flawed. And that's the thing. You got to really vet the content that you consume out there. You really have to be very careful of what you're consuming. I'm talking about that as a man or a woman. Particularly for men, there's a lot of toxic content out there, a lot of toxic podcasts. It's like, and I always say this. We talked about this on the gender divide a couple of weeks ago. But what I will say is, there's a lot of podcasts out there from the men's perspective side that are a lot. There's a lot of hurt men who are on these platforms. It doesn't even have to be a podcast. It can be TikTok, it can be Instagram, whatever, Reels, whatever. They can have platforms and they have a lot of followers, but a lot of these men can be hurt men, right? And they promote a certain narrative against women, and it fuels other men who have also been hurt, right? And then are like, all women aren't shit, all women aren't anything. Like, yo, like what's the saying? She's not yours, bro. It's just your turn. Like, this is how like a lot of these things happen. And then on the women's side of it, there's a lot of women who have also been hurt. So what they're telling women is, all men ain't shit, all men aren't anything. You know what I mean? So we got two different sides here of the coin. It's like you got hurt men, you got hurt women, and they're spewing this content, and there's hurt people that are watching. And what happens is if you are not fundamentally careful on what you're watching, what you're listening to, you can really get caught up in this. You know what I mean? A lot of the people that you're actually listening to are not coming from level-headed perspectives. I'm not saying everybody, but I'm just saying you have to, and I can't really help you there. You got to use your own discernment when you're out here like doing this. That's why I say God is like the best example. The Christ, like this is the best example. Like these are the things like pour into scripture, pour into the Bible. Like don't
Amen.
don't last. Amen, man. Don't let like bad past experiences shift your mindset forever. That's why it's so important to heal too, whether it's healing childhood wounds, whether it's healing past relationships. These things are so important, man, because if you don't, these things catch up, man. They do. They catch up with you. And it's just it doesn't make you a bad person, but you learn. You learn these things. It's just like these things, there's so much science behind this. It's just so many examples of this stuff. Is just, it's all there, man. Like it's just, you have to heal these things. And it's like I said, especially with childhood, you didn't choose it. You didn't choose it. You weren't born in, you didn't choose the household you were born into. And even bad relationships. You could have gotten to a relationship honestly thinking that person was a great person. And people's colors do shift. I always hear this too. Like people be like, why'd you have a kid with? Yeah, why didn't people have a kid with someone? Like, oh, you should have known. A lot of times, yeah, people make bad decisions when it comes to that. But I'll be honest too. People do change. People put on good masks, good fronts. I'm talking men and women. Like a man could get with a woman and like the woman has a mask on, and then he has a kid with her, and then that mask comes off, and now it's like, what did I do? Same thing for a woman. A woman could be with a man and have a child by that man. That man can, say all the right things, do all the right things up front, but when it comes time to be a father, now things have shifted. You know what I mean? Things have changed. Like, he's not actually the man that she thought he was. So
Right.
these things happen, man. It's like, so
Right. Yeah.
you have to
These-
heal though. Don't take these things out on the next partner. Don't close your heart. Because I really do believe you can block your blessings. You got to be careful. Don't block your blessings. You know what I mean? Just take time. Keep God at the center. When you keep him at the forefront, I'm gonna be honest with you. There's gonna be times where you're probably gonna be really tested too. Like, because the more you are close to God, I'm gonna be honest, you're gonna go through lots of trials and tribulations. But what I really do believe is it makes you stronger on the other side of it. It does. It's meant to transform you. Because when you're close to God, the devil tries to get involved too. He wants your energy just as much, man, and he's gonna want your energy even more. Especially if you start doing all the right things and following God, praying regularly, diving into scripture, and really just carrying your actions as a Christian. Every single day, you're walking as a Christian man or woman. The devil's going to try to get you too, even more, to get you off that center.
Exactly, man. Um,
So
that goes into play, the spiritual things, and these are areas that we have to take care of, within ourselves. Definitely the spiritual, and definitely, leaning on God, um, leaning on those principles, right, of forgiveness, leaning on those principles of understanding, leaning on those principles of, because overall, what they say, like, you can't fight hate with hate. You can't fight, your perspective with their perspective, because if someone has a different outlook or a different upbringing, a lot of their perspective is going to be different than yours. So how do you rectify that, right? If you love this person or if you're with this person, how do you rectify that? You have to
yeah,
get into a mode of being able to understand, being able to just listen to each other. And everyone has to feel heard in this situation. I think
yeah,
that's really important. Is that everyone has to feel heard. That's the number one thing. Even going back to the example that I used in my couple. Wait, hold on. The dad, the husband didn't feel like he was heard, and mom was venting a lot and taking a lot verbally out, not abusive or anything, but very um animated towards what she felt was his lack of effort or his lack of emotional labor. And
Hmm.
so that builds up resentment. When someone feels like they're not fulfilling a role fully, their partner, it builds up resentment. And so to rectify the situation, you have to communicate. To rectify the situation, we have to explore other options. You have to do something different than what you're doing, because if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're just going to fall into the same traps, the same arguments. I found myself, Steve, going through multiple sessions with this couple, have with them having the same arguments. Why? Because they were trying the same things. The moment that all right, I've listened to enough. I heard you both. It's time to stop this point or perspective, and let's listen to each other's perspective, and let's switch roles. Let's see what it looks like when one person is doing this role. Maybe you'll learn a little bit more about what this person goes through on a daily basis. You know what I mean? So, and again, that's how we talk about balance is so important, because with balance, you understand all the roles. You're educated in each and every single role, right? That is played in the household. Maybe sometimes you guys, and I know this seems like a lot, but some couples, some of them need this. They need to be on a rotational basis of, hey, maybe sometimes I cook, maybe sometimes she cooks, or they cook. Some like cleaning, whatever, laundry. Sometimes couples need to rotate just to feel, okay, this task entails this. You know what I mean? This is what this task entails for my household. Because sometimes we get wrapped up so much in our own roles that we don't even realize what the other person's going through on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's so true. And that's where empathy kind of comes in too, to be able to kind of put yourself in someone else's shoes and just try to relate, because like we don't always know when we're caught up in our own roles, right? Like you're so right. That's a really valid point, man. It's a good point that you brought up too. Very well said. When it comes to that, yeah, like we have to be better at trying to put ourselves in our partner's shoes, right? To be able to kind of see from their perspective. This goes with just people in general too in life. We all act like we can get very frustrated with each other, but maybe sometimes it just takes us being able to look at each other from a different lens, being like, hey, look, what are they going through right now, right? It's definitely different, and that's where I think being able to have empathy and be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes can really help with that. Yeah, man, valid point for sure. And so you have experience with that as like working in that field.
Yes, sir. And yeah, just going into different dynamics, different experiences, upbringings, going into the biblical, viewpoint, but also going into different viewpoints in terms of culturally. That is a real big factor as well, which I had named earlier as cultural factors or upbringing. I know I didn't say exactly cultural, but that's what I meant by different upbringings. So cultural factors. This is a big part in history, or a big time in history, where we're seeing there's a lot of interracial couples. There's a lot of couples that are coming from different social economic backgrounds. There's a lot of couples that are just dating, outside of what they're used to, because of the access, right? Because of the social media, because of the people are traveling now. It's just a lot of things going on, especially in the United States, to where you're opening, people are opened up to different perspectives on a daily basis now. um, Now, whether they choose to indulge or choose to interact with those perspectives, that's up to them. All I have to say or speak to upon that is that if two people are together, and again, I'm gonna fall back on call them superstar couple. They're awesome couple. They're doing amazing right now. Switch roles. They're working really hard right now. Awesome couple. These people are from completely different racial, cultural, and social economic backgrounds with my male client, the husband being African American, from an American, American background, middle class, coming from living in a house, coming from having both of his parents in his household, whereas my woman client on the other side, his wife being of British English descent, of being a Caucasian female, being from a family that is not as both parents aren't together, um, you know what I mean, but being from coming from a kind of a at odds with the parents type of background, but very structured and very refined in her structure. So like, someone coming from a tougher household, you know, may not value structure as much. They may value structure more so than the typical person. It also depends on the people, Steve, because you got people going through similar experiences who have opposite end of the spectrum views coming
Yep.
from similar life experiences. So a person coming from a disorderly house, they may overly value um order, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Whereas a person who is also coming from the same household may not value order, may be a free spirit, so it really does depend on the people. That's why I say it's very individualistic, the approach of your original question.
Yeah, man, it's definitely it definitely is. It's very individualistic because, like you said, people's backgrounds play a big factor. How they were brought up plays a big factor. Their life experiences play a big factor. So, for sure, definitely. I wanted to get to the secondary topic here. So the subtopic that we were talking about here. This one was our subtopic here tonight. So the actual way it's phrased is the sexual paywall. So what do I mean by that? What are our beliefs on the fact that do we think that sex is currently being used as a currency or reward in relationships? And what do you mean by like currency? It's like, yeah, it's not actually a trade for money, right? Like you're not. But what I mean by that is sex being used as a certain like type of like reward for things? Like, so say, for example, sex is being used to avoid conflict, right? That could be a big thing in relationships. People don't want to to avoid conflict. They just have sex to avoid it. Maybe it's like a trade, right? Like if the old school times where a man is a provider, it's like, okay, well now sex is given. So let me ask you, I guess that one, in terms of that. Yeah. So in terms of that, what do you guys think out there? Do you think that sex is currently being used as a currency in relationships? For me, I think this is very individualistic as well. To Rich's point on the provisioning side of it, I don't fully believe that it is in every single relationship, obviously, but do in a lot of modern relationships could be the case, sure, but it really depends on really depends on the person's personality, how they were brought up. Like I said, if you are someone who is more avoidant and you avoid conflict and you use sex as a tool to avoid that, then yeah, then that could be a factor. But it really depends on how you were brought up. I don't think that that's the thing for. I don't think that that is the thing for everybody. There's things out there that say like, oh, like this is like a thing for a lot of couples or most couples. I don't firmly believe that. I think it comes down to really like the background of each individual, their personality traits, and the level of communication that goes on inside that relationship too. There are people and I think there's a big problem that comes with using sex as a currency too, because what happens when you start to not have sex or sex, because now there's a lot of resentment that happens. But what I was going to ask you, Rich, what is your thoughts on that? I said it's very individualistic in terms of is sex being used as a currency in modern relationships? What I mean by that too is what I was saying was in terms of some people may use sex to avoid conflict. Some people may use sex to pay back, a spouse for financially providing, right? Like it could be like almost like a reward for that, but it's like there's a lot of problems that can come with that too. I said it's very individualistic. I don't think that that's a thing for everybody. I really do think it's like if the person is very avoidant, they might use sex to avoid conflict, right? So it's definitely different. But what are your thoughts on that, man? In terms of that sexual paywall, do you think that sex is being used in a lot of modern relationships in terms of like a currency or reward?
It's always been like that since the beginning of time, Steve. It's always been there's always been a pay for play element of society. I think this is the most that it's kind of been in history at the forefront with things like OnlyFans going on, with things like um I think it does sort of manipulate the typical relationship aspect, having things like this so open in our society, especially again, we're in a capitalist society. So when you have a society that's so money driven, it's only logical that you're going to start seeing industries that are pay for play related start to boom. And with that comes a adjustment into many marriages and many relationships, fortunately and unfortunately, because I think women deserve to have their sexual liberation in terms of the feminist movement and things of that nature going on. But then when it starts to become outside of me personally as a Christian, when it steps outside of the covenant, I think that's where you start to see a lot of indiscrepancies and a lot of and when that sort of attitude is inside the covenant, I think you see the covenant almost become a little bit corrupted, because it almost seems like your marriage is incentive based and not um, you know dedication based and not sacrificial based, right? That's a
Yep.
Bible element. If we're going back to the Bible element, man, let's get real with this. If we're going back to the Bible element, marriage is a mutual sacrifice. It's a mutual you're giving that person your body, they're giving you their body. You are all in on each other. You are all whether it be socioeconomically, whether it be everything is combined. And there is a no other options or other, well, if this person, I'm gonna use this to be able to gain. Now, if that's your agreement, that's your marriage, and both parties are okay with it, then I would just say take that up to God and let that be between you and God. Um, that's my observation on that. I can't really speak to anyone because again, I'm an MFT, so I'm not going to ever tell anyone you're doing this the right way or you're doing this the wrong way unless it is has to do with abuse or unless it has to do with something that is like unhealthy for the couple. Um, but in terms of these relationships going on, if you think you're asking me like, hey, look, man, do you think this is a normal occurrence? Do you think this is a thing that's like happening that's rampant? I think um with a lot of men that marry overseas, it could be a thing. Whereas this is like the intention of marrying. Are you marrying the person or are you marrying their fortune? Maybe if the dynamics
True.
social economically are like way different, that is always going to be kind of a question in the back of people's heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the real reason you're with this person? Are you
Exactly.
what are because like what are you giving up by being
Yep.
with this
Yep.
person?
It's so true. I yeah, and I've seen this like on both ends in this society. Do I think this is like more increasing? I think this is like more of an increasing thing. Like in terms of these things, but you see this in the dating world. A lot of men will take like women out right on like a date, and they'll be like, "Okay, well, I'm not going to pay for this unless you have sex with me tonight." It's like they're very like direct on it. It's like, hey, that's their viewpoint on it, but it's very transactional, right? Like that's like, and then like a lot of these like women will reject that man, and the man will be upset. But it's like, hey, but that's one example on the men's side of it. On the women's side of it, we see it sometimes, right? It's using sex is being used as a bargaining chip or like a punishment, like withholding sex, right? Like to like punish their partner. So is it definitely increasing? I would say yes. But like at the same time, like Rich said, I think it's very individualistic. And as Christians, obviously, we believe that love is sacrificial. You know what I mean? It's sacrificial, especially if you get married to the person. It's very much we, not I. When you're married to somebody, so you kind of communicate and you feel that out, and that's why I think it's so important to have these conversations too before you get married, to talk about like all different types of things, whether it's your approach to conflict, whether it's your approach to finances, whether it's your approach to sex. Like, hey, your sex drives, you need to have these conversations and talk about these things. Like, and hey, even if you're like your sex drive isn't as high, hey, can you satisfy the person in other ways? You know what I mean? Like, hey, it doesn't always have to, but these things are important to have these conversations, and you do this legwork up front so you really know how compatible you are with the person. And they're hard conversations too. But do I think it is used as a currency? I think more it's becoming increasing, yes, but it's not for everybody. So one thing I had seen too was like the price of sex. So socially, it is often treated as a resource that men seek and women can use as. So that's what I'm saying. So like for men, you see a lot of times they seek sex, whereas women can use it as a bargaining chip. I'm not saying women don't like sex too, because they do. But I would say in terms of sex, a lot of times, right, women hold the power to that. Whereas marriage, right, who's the one who proposes, right? It's a man who proposes. But in terms of like sex, women a lot of times hold the keys to that. Like like if we're being honest. So
Mhm.
this is how you see this a lot in modern society. That's why I say too, you got to be careful of the content you consume. But you see this you see this more and more. I see it on social media sometimes, like women getting up in arms because a dude is trying to use a dinner date, like, or taking a woman out as like, hey, you're gonna have sex with me, which I think is like wrong. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, if you're the man who asked the woman out on the date, you pay for the date. Like, you don't go into it with like, I need expectation. It's like, nah, that's just not. It's not right. Like, you're the man. You asked her out. Like, you pay
Right.
for the date.
You're
You pay
courting
for
too as a man. It's you're in that
it. Yes.
you're in that place where you're trying to court or you're trying to gauge. You're the pursuer. That's generally the masculine role, is the role of the pursuer. So you're taking a lot of the initiative. You're doing a lot of the stepping up. Not to say that the woman is not going to be a place or a time for a woman to step up and play her role, but the feminine role is all often, I mean, of course, it's by individual again. I don't want anyone to get offended by me saying this, but the feminine role is often associated with submission, is often associated with being courted, not doing the courting. So what you have there is, and again, there's a lot of women, like you said, boss babes or whatever. Like, it's a lot of women who are feminine, but they live out on their individual day to day life. They're moving in a masculine role, whether it be in their
Yeah.
workplace, their jobs, whether it be, being the sole provider of their families as a single mother, whether it be, excuse me, just being that person in their family who is organizing things, who's everyone's always kind of looking to for direction, right? And that's generally a little bit more of a masculine role, there. Um, but to
Sometimes they're forced into it. Yep.
exactly, man. And one thing I will say, I think it is right for a man to want to step up, to want to court, to pay for dinner, and do those traditional things. I think is right. And I think women hold a lot of the power and control when it comes to sex, because a woman is typically giving up more than the man. Let's be real about it. So if a man and a woman have sex, who what likelihood of whose body is going to be affected most, right? I'm talking about
Yeah.
pure natural sex with no condoms or anything, or no
Yeah.
protection. Whose
The
body
woman's
is at most risk?
the woman's body. Yeah.
The woman's body is at most risk. So it's ideal as to why the woman would be a little bit more cautious, a little bit more, hesitant to go and pursue that relationship with that male, which means like when the woman is the one who's the more cautious one, it means that what they have is in a bit more of a demand than what the man is more willing to. A man can spread his seed, right, so to speak. A man can go out and have multiple partners and not really be impacted physically outside of obviously the obvious things, right? Everyone's at risk of STDs and things like that. I'm not referring to that. Everyone's at risk, right, when they have sex. Um, but on a typical two, you got a healthy female and a healthy male fully having sex. The woman does have a little bit more going on with her body, after that activity has been completed.
100%. Yeah, it's no, definitely, definitely. So it's for sure. Like you said too, on like the side of like the courting and stuff too. It's like, yeah, no, what I was saying is like a lot of it is when it comes to like women being put kind of into a masculine role. Sometimes it's not. It's kind of survival. It really depends. Like it's kind of survival. So you see it a lot. Um, and I think that also says a lot about men today, right? Like men, a lot of men be better. You know what I mean? It's a lot of times that's why you hear you see a lot of women will like it's just they wind up leaving relationships with the person they had a child with because like they felt like they were taking care of another child. Like it's so that's where men need to be better in that aspect, and there's areas where women could be better too, like on their aspects too. But it's just you start to see it more and more. So it's yeah, it can shift the roles too. Like there's a lot of men that are also more passive and feminine in this society. So it's like you're seeing that more and more. A lot of men aren't being men; they're being more passive, and then women are becoming more masculine. So you're seeing it on both sides. Like the polarity is just backwards, though; it's opposite. I think if you'd ask like most women, they would prefer to actually be in their feminine and not in masculine roles. But a lot of times, due to survival, they've been forced into that role. Whereas like men, it depends on how they were raised. Sometimes, right? If they were raised in like dynamics where their father was very passive, you know what I mean, it can lead them to be very passive. So it really depends. But do I think that it is being used as a currency more? I do believe so. But that's where it's like we have to be careful about that. It's what I mean. It's like if we're using sex as a bargaining chip or a punishment, that's a problem. If we're using sex as like literally like I did this for you, now I expect sex, like it's a problem. It's like sex
That's
should
not a
be.
traditional marriage any longer. If it gets,
It's
it's
not.
a
It's not.
transactional thing. It's just almost it's just like it's just another facet of just like if you know how the reverse of it is when the woman is having that money from that sugar daddy or something like that, where you're having a relationship where one portion of the dynamic is um transactions, right? I'll give you affection, I'll give you time spent if you spend money on me, right? Whereas like it's reverse where it's like feel I will give you affection, I will give you sex, right? If you spend money on me or if you're the sole provider, it's just kind of like another facet of that. It's just a kind of a more complex and like drawn out version of that where marriage official legal binding, right? This is kind of like where American society's marriage is a little bit different than some other parts of the world. Let's be real, because American society's legal. It's a legal agreement. You're legally binded, where in some other countries a marriage, you're married, you know what I mean, and you're tied to that person, but it's a little bit less legal, it's a little bit less financially binding. But again, that's why I kept saying the capitalist society, because in a capitalist society marriage is always going to um, look different. There's always going to have court rules, right, in place to um, tell you the ground rules of how, if this marriage doesn't work out, what's going to happen, what are the steps. thankfully, I was also a probation officer, so I do know a lot of rules of the courts. I do know a lot of things going on. I have been in the court room a lot, so I'm a little bit familiar with the laws and stuff like that, and how men can protect themselves, how women can protect themselves, in these situations. Yeah,
So true, man. Yeah, it's it's exactly there's we have to understand that too. We have to see how there's like ways to protect ourselves too, because it can get really yeah, it can get messy, man. We've seen it.
yeah, we seen it, man. We seen it get messy. In popular culture, it's everywhere, man. I mean, divorces are so common now that it's almost like, almost like you can't go a month without hearing about a situation of someone getting divorced or someone going through some type of financial battle with a former spouse there. So, but this is all good things for us in terms of the audience, because now, with every failed marriage, it is a lesson, or it is a understanding or a teaching. It doesn't have to. So if you've been one of those people, and I have, I've been divorced before, I've been married before. If you are one of those people, you don't have to look at it as a failure. You can look at it as, oh wow, this is like a teaching moment. This was a lesson. Oh wow, like maybe you need to court different. Maybe you need to ask certain questions that you didn't ask the first time you got married. Maybe you need to gauge and understand and kind of read the rest of their family to kind of see, okay, is how this person raised, is it going to be compatible with what my family is and what I stand for? You know what I mean? And so these are all important things. These are all things. And again, um, not everyone may not be used to you doing that. So it's just make sure you do it in a way that's understanding, make sure you do it in a way that is soft and caring and kind. Um Especially coming from a Christian perspective, right? Because coming from a Christian perspective, you want to make sure that, again, everyone's being heard in this situation, right? You don't want one person being heard. You don't want you don't want to make it seem like, hey, I have it out for you, or this person, make them feel like, you have it out for them. But at the same time, you want to do your due diligence and make sure you're not getting into anything that could be, a situation where there is, like you said earlier, Steve, abuse, verbally, physically, where there is, um, and that's what we have to do. We have to do our due diligence and read between the lines, and it's harder when you have feelings. 100%, it's harder when you have feelings for a person, but you have to really look at the situation for what it is and see, hey, look, is this person, caring of me? Do they care about how I feel? Do they actually, or and also I'll give drop one last piece of marriage things here. Um, just off of what I learned, because I learned this stuff way after my situation. So I became an MFT, and it kind of inspired me, um, to do extra work, right, and to learn about myself and learn how relationships work. And one thing I will say is this: um, make sure when you get married, for anyone who's at that position or at that point where you're like, I'm about to get married, I want to marry this person, or I've been with this person for a while, I'm trying to push for a marriage, things are going really good. Um, I see myself with this person long term or in the future. One thing I would ask you to ask yourself, if the answer is yes, and that person does want to be with you, or you suspect that person is all in for you, make sure that person wants to marry you, and make sure it is like not like they just want to be married. Because there is a portion of the population, a portion of people who they have a goal for themselves in terms of what age they want to get married. They have things planned out. They have things where the way they want their life to go.
Yep.
And yeah, yeah. So make sure they want to marry you, not just like they just want to be married just to be married.
That is so valid, man. That's why you got to have these conversations up front, man. You got to do all the legwork, because that's why I think premarital counseling is so important, because there are people that genuinely just want to get married. Like, they just want to get married to get married. It's like, or they want companionship, or they have insecurities, right? Maybe they fear being alone, right? But you want to make sure you're marrying the right person. You know, a divorce it's a very tumultuous thing to go through. Anybody who's out there, men, women who have been through divorce, you know it's a tough thing to go through. I have never been through divorce before, but I can only imagine. You know, I've gotten out of, you just getting out of long-term relationships and going through it. You see how tumultuous, like, or just how emotionally, like, heavy it is to go through that. Going through a divorce is real, especially if you got kids involved and you realize this down the line. You be with somebody for a decade and you just really got married just to get married. Then you have kids and you stay in the relationship or you stay in the marriage just to stay, to like prove to yourself, prove a point, like whatever it is. It's like, it's not genuinely happy. Life is too short. And you want to make sure that you're with somebody who you're compatible with, someone who's going to choose you every day. I'm going to be honest, like love, like real love, like marriage, like if you're going to get married to somebody, it's intentional. And people say I use the word intentional a lot, but intentional, it is so true though. Like it is a choice. It is a choice. It is not feelings, because you can be in love with somebody, you can love somebody. It's like, but your feelings for somebody can fluctuate from day to day, depending on the stress load that you're going through or whatever you're going through. So you got to be really careful in these scenarios that you're marrying somebody who's going to choose you each day. And you also promise to never give up on the person and also to always work for your, relationship. And that also means being, like, from a man's perspective, like the best protector, provider, emotionally supportive, like husband that you can be, and like emotionally supportive father you can be. You know what I mean? But and then a woman, it's the same thing. Like she's nurturing, right? Like she's willing to like also communicate. If you're both emotionally available, you're able to have those conversations. Never giving up on the person and just being able to like, hey, I know life is going to be a battle. I know we're going to go through struggles, but you're the person I want to wake up next to every day, and you're the person that I want to do this with. Like that's literally what it is, and it is important, man, to have these conversations and to, I think, go through premarital counseling. Yeah, it's obviously a lot. It's a lot deeper than like I'm just simplifying it, but it really is about choosing the person. So make sure you're marrying somebody who really wants to marry you, not just marrying you because they feel like they have to. Like you don't ever want to be that. You don't want to be the person that somebody's being with just because they're settling. You want them to be excited about you, like they're choosing you, like, and vice versa.
Yep.
You don't feel that way about your person.
You gotta make sure that, and so sometimes it may be better in some situations to co-parent than to get married, depending on what this person is. If you're with the person and you're not compatible, but you're trying to force it, that may not have the best outcome that you think it will. So just to make sure that, whoever you're with, they're choosing you every day, like Steve just said. So I think I couldn't have said it better myself, man. It's a choice every day. It's emotions fluctuate. As you go through storms, there's going to be phases of depression. There's going to be phases of, or at least depressive symptoms. I don't want to put that on anyone, but there is going to be ups and downs through life. And you got to make sure that, hey, this is a person that you're going to choose consistently every day. So.
Yep. It's so true, man. It is so true. It's like you have to, I don't know, be with someone who's excited to be with you.
Yeah.
Man, it's crazy. It's like we could literally waste our time like being with the wrong person. You have to just, I don't know.
Some people can perform, man. Some people are great actors. Some people are great performers, man. Especially if you come from a background or a household where you're rewarded for performing, and not really genuinely having feelings of wanting to do what you had to do. If you're coming from a household where you're rewarded for performing, then you're going to be an adult. You're going to grow into an adult performer.
Yeah, man. Be careful for the women that are always talking about being a wife, or the men that are always considered just be about a husband, because it's almost like they want to perform a role. It's almost like You
Mm,
know, you understand as a man or a woman, if you're a man of God, like that, God's gonna provide you with that person. Like, right? What is the story of Ruth and Boaz? Right? Like, for a woman that's gonna find, she's gonna find her Boaz, or the man's gonna find his Ruth, like in the right time. So like,
right.
just understand that, that might be really what you want, but pray on that. Don't just become a husband because you want to be a husband, or don't just become a wife. You see that a lot with women. A lot of women, they want to be a wife. They want to be a wife. They want to be a wife. That's the thing. They become a wife to a man that they're not really into, just
Right.
to be a wife. And it's like, so it's, you know what I mean. Yeah, guys, we'll wrap up in the next couple of minutes. I know we're here at like 10:30. We're at that 10:30 mark, but this was a good episode, man. But it's just, yeah, just be careful, when it comes to that. Like, don't, like, if somebody is over the top talking about marriage and like they want to be a wife or a husband, I'm like, you gotta dive more into that and just understand and like question those things a little bit more. Just because, like, especially if you don't really know them like super well, like it's like very early on and like they're still, you know what I mean.
Mhm.
I see that, that's a lot. Like everybody, like that, you see that a lot. I personally have seen it, like in the dating world. It's like you just got to be a little cautious of that because it's like, or just I wouldn't even say just ask questions. Like, you know what I mean? Like really
That's
try to dive deeper on that because it's like, some people might have a feeling about that, but don't won't dive deeper on it. Like, you know what I mean? You gotta, if sometimes people just wanna have the marriage and they just want to have the title, but it's like, yeah, are you really prepared for all the things that marriage is all the challenges that you're going to face in a marriage? Are you really, you're going to be a father, right, or a mother? Are you really prepared for all the challenges that you're going to face in that? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah, a lot of times it's no. But the good news is if you feel like you've gotten into a marriage or a relationship with someone who you want to marry and you're like deep in, the good news is they can always make progress. They can always work with you and
you can
build up,
adapt.
you know.
Yeah, you can adapt. You can adapt
Yeah,
for
you can
sure.
adapt. People change. People change constantly. So, um, you gotta hold out that as long as they treat you right, as long as they're not abusive or verbally or physically abusive, or as long as they're not disrespecting you on a daily basis in terms of how they treat you, I say, you know, um, try to encourage that person to mature and uh, possibly seek therapy. And if they refuse to go to therapy, possibly seek counseling because some people just have a problem with the word therapy for some reason. So if you take them maybe to a church counselor or take them to some sort of counseling, it's the same concept. It's the same thing. You're still getting advice. I think that's the main thing you want is your partner to get sound advice and that benefits you both.
Right, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep, really does. Oh man, I just want to check on Facebook real quick before we wrap up, bro. I appreciate you joining tonight, man. This was some good discussion.
Yeah, man, you already know, man. Like I'm here for the sports. Go Birds, go Phillies, go Flyers, go Sixers. We're all in this, all Philly, all day. In the lockdown, locked in podcast. But the thing is, I'm always also going to be here for any marriage and family therapy topics or any relationship topics. I think it's much needed in our society.
These things are definitely needed. These are the deeper conversations. These are like the real ones. Sports is entertainment and everything like that, but these are the real ones. Like these are real conversations. Guys, I just want to give you a heads up. I'm going to be taking the next couple weeks off just to kind of rebrand, remarket, put out more content like towards the podcast to really just grow this brand. So it's going to take the next couple weeks, maybe just 1 week, and then I'll be back in two. I had my calendar kind of set up too, so I'm restructuring like into April. But I did have one episode that was still on the schedule. I'm just going to move that back an extra week, guys, just to give some allocate to this, but. Bro, I appreciate you, man. This was a good episode, man. I know you have some experience in the realm too, like I said, when it comes to like marriage, family therapy, and everything like that. So definitely a good topic.
Hell yeah, man. I'm gonna hold my mic like the Rock, man. We doing this thing. We're in this thing, bro. Nah, seriously though, man. I appreciate you having me, man. I love being on here. Love the audience. the participation and stuff. I think next time we should definitely host like a questionnaire and stuff and just have men and women contribute. Let's build it up, man. Let's build this thing up. Let's encourage interaction. I think that is the best thing here. We got, speaking of interaction, what we got?
Marius. He said, women hold the keys to the bedroom, men hold the keys to the relationship. Women decide who fucks, men decide who walks down the aisle. Very straightforward.
Right on time, bro. Right on time, yeah.
You're late, man. You were supposed to be on the mic, bro.
That's what's up, bro. That's a
Appreciate you, though, man.
That's a W comment. Yeah, that comment is crazy. It's a W. I mean, he's not lying. Men do have a lot of
he just put it bluntly, but it's man. It's
that's what the demand is for men. The demand for us men is for us to be in relationships. Women are emotional based. Men are physical based, and it's like reverse. The demand is reversed. Like women want the relationship, men want the physical. Obviously, both want a little bit of both. I'm not denying that. But what I'm saying is like a large part of what we feel, men, is physical. How we feel, how a woman talks to us, right? It's emotional too, but it's how people see your woman talking to you. Like that is like a physical experience. Like and men we feel love through that way. And like how women feel love is like how if they felt listened to or valued. It's a lot of it's emotional based. So it's just like we both have what each other wants, but it's just like, you know what I mean? Like Mara said, man, a lot of men can control the relationship stuff, and a lot of women can control the sexual stuff and the rewards that come with that. But it's like, are we going to do this in a healthy way? Is our dynamics going to be healthy? And I think that's really important subject to think about and build up on more so. Like more podcasts like this, most definitely, man. I think this is an awesome, deep subject. More women in here, more men and women in here. Have a table talk, man. And I think we can, have some fun with this.
Yeah, I agree. These conversations are more needed, so we're going to bring them as we go along. Hopefully, we can have a more balanced panel next time, and we'll get that in here and be able to get perspectives across the board like we used to with a lot of those after hours episodes, man.
I'm with it, bro.
Man, I said my bad, bro. Had a bad headache earlier. Wi-Fi was acting weird this evening. Haven't had a chance to check a text. It's all good, brother.
Shout out to Marius.
Shout out to Marius, man.
Love you, bro.
Love you, brother. With that being said, guys, I guess we'll wrap up here. See you in like 2 weeks for episode 248. There'll be some good content coming out. Trying to get back to the short form content. A lot of stuff out on that. So excited about that. Have some things already put together to like put out. So trying to get more on a consistent basis, man. You know how it is. Life juggling everything, man. You're trying to juggle a million different things, but put more love, tender love and care.
Got it.
Trying to put some more tender love and care into the podcast,
Trucking away.
Yes, sir. Well, guys, have a great night, great weekend. We'll see you in the next couple weeks, but have a good night, brother. Thank you again.
Deuces. Stay locked in.
Stay locked in.